Good morning. Happy day before tax day. Some of you may know it as that. Let's make sure we got all platforms running properly. Rumble, we are good. Good morning. YouTube, we are good. Good morning. X, we are good. Good morning. On a lot of these platforms, I can't even see what's going on, but that's fine. X, we are good. Good morning. Facebook is active. Morning. LinkedIn is working properly. Instagram directly in front of me. Good morning. And TikTok is working. TikTok never gives me a problem except when I get banned and suspended. But other than that, I never have a connection problem. Never had a connectivity problem with TikTok except when I'm banned or suspended and can't actually use it. But other than that, TikTok is pretty consistent. Did anybody buy TikTok yet? I thought their deadline was like 10 days ago. Nothing happened. Courtney, good morning to you. Good to see you here as usual. Let me see. Shout out to all the moderators in here. Willie Woodward, good morning to you. What we're going to talk about here today is the Real ID controversy. Nikki, good morning. Good to see you here as usual as well. What we're going to talk about here today is the Real ID controversy. I'm sure if you pay attention to what's going on in, let's just call it the news. Let's just call this news. It ain't, sometimes it's news, sometimes it ain't news, but have all of you heard about this Real ID thing? It was a news story for probably about, how long was Real ID a news story? It was a news story for about 48 hours, maybe between Friday and Sunday. And it kind of got bumped off the headlines on Sunday, and a bunch of people have been talking about it. And I was thinking about, what are we going to talk about this week? We need something. I was looking for something that's a current event. This one, again, Friday, a lot of people were talking about it after I finished my live, then into Saturday, Sunday. So now we're going to talk about it here today. For those of you not familiar with the Real ID, we'll call it a controversy or the situation. It's basically this update of your ID card. Now, any of you who's an American citizen needs to have done, or you need to have this updated ID card that basically puts this little tiny star in the top right corner of your ID. At least in the state of Florida, puts a star in the ID. I think that's in all states. And the whole purpose of the Real ID is to basically uniform in some way the identification that each of us is using, so that it's easier for the government to, between states on the federal level, to be able to tell, is this person an actual citizen of the United States of America, whether you have an ID from West Virginia or from Virginia or from Florida or from North Dakota or from Oregon or from Washington State. So the way that they're implementing this is starting on May 7th of this year, you have to have a Real ID verified identification in order to travel, let's say on a plane. You want to get on the plane, you got to show your ID. You know, when you get on the airplane and you go to the, what do they call that thing? The gate, and not the gate. Is it the gate? No, not the gate. The check-in desk. If you're checking a bag, for example, or you need to get a booking, you need to get your boarding pass, you show your ID. You hand your ID to the person at the counter, and they make sure that you're actually booked for the right flight, and they check your ID and all that. If your ID is not a Real ID, starting on May 7th of this year, which is about 3 weeks from now, they, according to the rules, they're not going to let you on the plane because you don't have a Real ID. So this is something that, since it got announced by, it was Kristi Noem, who is the Secretary of, looking up Kristi right now. She is the Secretary of the Department of Homeland Security under the leadership of Donald Trump. She was nominated by Trump. A lot of people may remember Kristi. She was in line to possibly be a VP candidate until that book came out, and she admitted that she shot her dog, and that pretty much hurt. But she's been very loyal to Donald Trump. And she announced, she's the one who put the announcement out, and all of a sudden everybody started going crazy, which doesn't quite make any sense, because it is obvious to me that a lot of people either don't travel that much by plane, or they simply weren't paying attention. And I'll explain to you exactly what I mean by that when we get into our conversation here today. So let me introduce myself. For those who don't know me, my name is Dre Baldwin. Many know me as Dre all day. I'm a former 9-year professional athlete, author of 41 books, and 4 TEDx talks. Created this company called Work on Your Game Incorporated. We help professional entrepreneurs systematize and scale their businesses from the 6 to the 7-figure level. If that sounds like that's your alley, then you can find out more about us at workonyourgameuniversity.com, or check out the links in my profile wherever you happen to be watching this. So this Real ID quote unquote controversy. Let me read what I saw somebody say on X. This is a very popular, this guy named Storm Robinson. He said, Real ID is literally just a regular ID with a little star on it to demonstrate you showed the DMV clerk a document with your name and address on it is going to be okay, people. That does pretty much summarize what Real ID is, but it became a controversy for some other reasons that a lot of people don't quite understand. Now, right after that, let's see what Thomas Massie said. And who is Thomas Massie? He is a U.S. representative from Kentucky, the 4th District of Kentucky. And he said the following, and I don't know if he's a Democrat or a Republican, but based on what he is saying here, I'm going to guess. Anybody know Thomas Massie is Democrat or Republican? I've heard his name before, but I don't know. I'm guessing he's a Democrat based on what it looks like he's about to be saying here. I'm going to read it in one moment. Does anybody know Thomas Massie from Kentucky? Is he a Democrat or Republican? Anybody answer that question? Maybe some of you know, maybe none of you know. We'll find out in one moment. But either way, it doesn't matter. Let's read what he says. He's a Republican. Thomas Massie's Republican. Okay. Carla, good to see you. Marky Man, good morning. Thomas Massie says, Real ID isn't needed and won't stop terrorists from taking planes, hijacking planes. Most of the 9/11 hijackers were from, he named some countries in the Middle East. He says, Real ID is a national standard and database of IDs that is primarily a tool for control of Americans. Trump should not enforce it. So this is what Thomas Massie said. And according to Carla here, she says Thomas Massie is a Republican. It doesn't matter if he's Democrat or Republican, but that's what he said. So let's talk about what this Real ID thing actually is, where it started, where it came from, what it really means for everybody as far as I can see. Number one, the Real ID thing has been in the works. This is not a Trump policy. So anybody saying that, a lot of people start reacting when Kristi Noem put this statement out on, I think it was around Friday. She was just reminding everybody, hey, this is coming. When she put the statement out, a lot of people were reacting to it because, of course, people have this Trump derangement syndrome. Anything Trump says or does, they just have this wild reaction to it. Like, oh, my God, Trump is doing this thing. And there's another bad thing that Trump is doing, when the reality is Real ID is not a Trump administration policy. And this was signed into law. And any of you doesn't know this, the Real ID thing was signed into law in May of 2005. Not 25, May of 2005, 20 years ago. This was signed into law by President George W. Bush. And the reason that the Real ID thing was signed into law was because in the aftermath of 9/11, it was a direct response to the recommendations of the 9/11 Commission. Those are the people who did a whole investigation, however you feel about that investigation and the legitimacy of it. They did a whole investigation into 9/11 and what happened. And one of their recommendations was, we need a way to make sure that all identification amongst American citizens is uniform, because in different states, the IDs are different. So in the state of Illinois, there's a certain type of ID. Florida has a different one. Texas has a different one. So any of you who travels a lot, like I travel often by plane, and when I have my Florida ID with me and I'm in any other airport outside of the state of Florida and they put the ID through, when you do your, yes. Excuse me? She does have them, but I'm in the middle of my live stream. I can't give it to you right now while I'm recording. Can you ask Mommy for one? Or when Madison comes, you can ask her for one, okay? Or you want to eat one here? You want to eat one here? Do you want a banana? You change your mind? Okay. Anyway, back to our regularly scheduled program. It was signed into law, again, by George W. Bush in May of 2005 as a recommendation from the 9/11 Commission. We want uniform identification so that everybody's ID is somewhat uniform, so that when you're going from state to state, we can tell that people are actual citizens. Because when you go through the TSA, past TSA or past Clear, I have Clear. Y'all should all have a Clear. Any of you who flies more than 2 times per year, I strongly suggest that you invest in a Clear membership. You get through security a lot faster and with a lot less hassle, even with TSA. TSA and Clear combined is a great combination. So anyway, TSA pre-check, that is. So when you go up to the gate, not the gate agent, I keep saying gate, the TSA security person who checks your ID before you get to the actual security scanners, that person looks at your ID and they often scan it through some type of machine. And in the state of Florida, the ID that I have or had, it kept giving error. Every time there'll always be some type of error, and then they had to go look at it personally. And the TSA people at the security would always say, man, the state of Florida is always an issue with the Florida IDs. I don't know what it is. That's one of the issues with the whole Real ID thing. So the whole purpose of the Real ID is to make sure that every ID, even though they don't look the same, has something that across all 50 states, it could be somewhat uniform. And again, the 9/11 Commission back in 2005 made this recommendation. George W. Bush signed it into law in 2005. So the question should be, why is this now getting affected in May 7th of 2025? Why would it take 20 years for us to have standardized identification documents that ostensibly enhances national security? So there's several things we could talk about when it comes to this point alone. After 9/11, this is the fact of the situation. After 9/11, most Americans were in support of this very thing. A lot of people are pushing back against it right now. A lot of people are pushing, and I'm going to answer questions and comments at the end of this. A lot of people are pushing back against this now because, the threats or the emotions that everybody felt after 9/11 has very much subsided. It's been on damn near 25 years. But back then, everybody was okay with this. We were all okay with the Transportation Security Administration, better known as TSA. I'm not a fan of TSA, but everybody was okay with TSA back then when it happened. We were all fans of, not all of us, but many people were in support of some level of surveillance by the national government of American citizens, because we were all afraid. And when I say we, I don't mean every one of us individually, but as a whole, we were afraid of whatever was going to, or whatever could happen again after 9/11 happened. So a lot of people were okay with this increased surveillance by the United States government, and basically them having more say over what we do, where we go, and knowing about what we do, where we go, and who we are. And this was us giving up a certain amount of privacy, a certain amount of freedom. We gave this up in the wake of 9/11. All of us as a whole, we did this. Why do we do this? Because this is a fundamental truth of life, is that freedom and security are, or if you want to call it privacy, freedom/privacy and security are kind of, inverses of each other. You got to give up one to get the other. If you want to have more security in life, you have to give up some of your freedom and some of your privacy. If you want to have more freedom and privacy in life, you must give up some of your security, at least security that is provided by anything outside of yourself. So, for example, if you are working at a job right now and you want to have more freedom of time and freedom of income potential and freedom of doing what you want to do, well, you had to give up the security of your paycheck and start a business. Now, without the security, without the safety net, now you had the freedom to do whatever the hell you want to do. If, on the other hand, you run the business and you're tired of the lack of security and the lack of safety net of knowing you're going to get a check and you want to get a job, well, to get the job, you got to give up some of the freedom that you had of being able to do what you want, making your own schedule and being your own boss, and instead have a job where someone can tell you what to do. They make the schedule and you can't do whatever you want. So there's a trade-off of everything. Always remembering, folks, I talk about this damn near every subject that I talk about. The third law of economics is known as the trade-off / opportunity cost / no free lunches. In other words, anything that you get in life, there is a cost. And anytime you get something and you think that you're just getting it for free, no, you're not. You have to give up something in order to get it. So I'm saying all that to say a lot of Americans were very, very anxious after 9/11, and we were willing to let the government do whatever it claimed it needed to do in order to keep us, quote unquote, safe after 9/11. This was one of those things. The Real ID was one of those things. Now, why would it take damn near 25 years for them to implement it? Because of something else that I keep telling you all. Anytime the conversation is the government, is that the United States government is slow, inefficient, and it just it's very bureaucratic. There's a lot of red tape. There's thousands of people involved in everything that happens, and anything that needs to get done, you got to go through a whole bunch of people before anything actually happens. That's why this took 20 years, and there were several delays. So when I was looking into this, they said some of the things that caused the delay was they said COVID was a delay, but COVID was in damn 2020. What was happening between 2005 and 2020? Still a 15-year gap. The whole point here is, folks, this is what happens when you do things through the government. Okay, so any of you who is planning on having the government do anything to or for you to help you or hinder you or whatever, understand it's probably going to take a very long time. It's going to be very slow. And if and when it happens for you to do anything to kind of reverse it, so to speak, good luck. All right, that's what I'm saying. And again, I've been telling you all this over and over again, no matter what the topic is. Most Americans were such in fear after 9/11. We were open to anything and everything that sounded like it would increase our level of safety. Again, maybe not each one of you individually felt that way, but back then, the majority of Americans were okay with that. So when the government started saying, okay, we're going to start doing all these other things, the American citizens pretty much rubber stamped everything that George W. Bush and his crew said they were going to do. So again, the government's slow and inefficient. That's why we're finally getting around to this. Now, the whole point was to standardize identification across states to allegedly, ostensibly, prevent security breaches. That's what this is all about, preventing security breaches. So it sounds crazy now because everybody's calmed down from 9/11. Many people some of you listening to me right now weren't even alive when 9/11 happened. What was this, 24 years ago? So when I book flight tickets, this is what I want to tell you all for those who may not have known about this. And I've been saying this on X over the weekend. Whenever I would book flight tickets or whenever I use Clear at the airport, and Clear, by the way, for those who don't know what it is not in every airport. Clear is only in like really large, bigger city airports. So Clear is in places like Minneapolis has Clear. Vegas definitely has it. I've been there a few times. Vegas definitely has it. Atlanta has Clear. Miami has Clear. Fort Lauderdale has Clear. I don't know if New York has it. Any of you fly in and out of JFK or LaGuardia, do they have Clear? I'm not a fan of New York's airports, but I don't live in New York. But I think Philadelphia definitely has it. I believe Dallas has it. The bigger airports, they generally have Clear. So Clear is basically an extra security thing that you kind of do ahead of time, and you're cleared by the TSA in a way that you get to jump the TSA line. So you don't have to stay in TSA line. Stand in TSA line. Even if you have pre-check, even with pre-check, you jump in front of everybody. Every time you get the clear, all you do is it scans your eyes because it takes track of your eyes. It scans your eyes to identify that that's you. And then you have your boarding pass, and the clear person brings you to the front of the TSA line, and you jump in front of everybody waiting in line, even the pre-check people, and then you go straight to the security belt. And of course, you want to have the combination of TSA pre-check, which is like, what, $85, or it's probably maybe $100 now for 5 years. All of you should invest in that if you fly at all. And just to save yourself the hassle of taking your shoes off. And the nastiest TSA agents are the ones with the people with no pre-check. The less nasty ones are the ones where you have pre-check. And nicest example, nicest, what's the word I'm looking for here? The nicest experience is the word. The nicest experience of going through security at the airport. I don't like going through security at all. Some of you are old enough to remember when there was a time you could walk into the airport from out on the street and walk right up to the gate. There used to be that time. How many of you remember that? Put me if you remember those times. You could walk straight up to the gate from outside on the street. Like I could literally go to Miami airport right now, just walk right up to the gate and watch people get on the plane and watch the planes fly away. That doesn't exist anymore after 9/11. So I don't like the existence of the security, but now that we have it, and it's probably not going away, the best experience is for you to have Clear and TSA pre-check. So the entire time between the time you arrive at the line and tell people, hey, I have Clear, and then through. And also, by the way, the Clear agents are the nicest people you're going to deal with when it comes to security. They're all very nice because you have a paid premium service. And when you pay premium for a service, you get the best possible service. And if you didn't know that, you can apply that to any aspect of life. When you pay for a premium service, you get the best possible service, you get the nicest people, and you get the best experience. If you don't pay at all and you just do the free route, that's no TSA pre-check, and you going through security, okay, you're not going to like going to the airport. You're going to dread going to the airport just because of the whole situation with the people yelling at you like you're checking into prison and having to take your shoes off. You got to take your laptops out, and they're checking through your bags and all that nonsense. Again, I don't like security at all, but the best way to deal with it is to have Clear and TSA pre-check. Okay, so that's a sales. Clear and TSA pre-check both need to send me an affiliate fee for selling their products for them right here on this live stream. But anyway, the whole point of this, folks, is when I would book flight tickets for the last, since 2000, maybe 22, and especially when I went through security, I would always get notifications that said, hey, there's a certain date coming up where you got to have a real ID. If you don't have the real ID, you're not going to be able to fly. Make sure you update your real ID. Because I would go through the Clear security, and the Clear agent, always very nice people, they would say, I would put my ID in, and they would say, they would have to do like a manual scan because for whatever reason, the ID wasn't going through the right way. And they would say, or next time you fly, they would tell me this every time, but I kept forgetting to do it until I finally remembered to do it. They said, next time you fly, Mr. Baldwin, bring your passport with you, your passport and your ID. And what we'll do is get you locked into the system so that we don't have to keep doing this manual thing every single time. And I finally remembered to do it, and it started working fine. And then in 2023, my driver's license was up for renewal. So I had to actually go to the DMV and actually do the driver's license renewal. I did that, and my new driver's license had the little star on it. In the top right corner, there's a little star that says Real ID. Any of you who lives in any of you live outside the state of Florida, do you have the Real ID? Does it have the little star in the top right corner? Put yes, any of you had that experience. So a bunch of you know what I'm talking about when walking up to the gate. But does any of you live outside of Florida? Does the Real ID have the little star in the top right corner? I think that's the thing that gives it the yeah. All right. So all of you are saying that. Okay. So Missouri, Chicago, Mississippi. Amber, I don't know where you're located. Tara said, I live in Florida and don't have this. You might need to update you might need to get a new license. You might be, your license may be expired. So Texas, Illinois, not expired, excuse me. Maybe you just didn't update it since they started doing a real ID. Texas, South Carolina, Connecticut. Okay. So all of you got it. Tennessee, everybody got it. So I think in Florida, your license expires like every 8 years. I don't have my license near me, but I think it's every 8 years because I had gotten mine. I think the last time I updated it was like 2015. Then I had to update again in 2023 and then again in 2031. I think it's every 8 years. But I was looking this up yesterday, and it turns out that Florida started putting in the real ID in 2010. So they already knew this was happening. So if you live in Florida and you don't have the little star on your ID, I don't know why, because according to what I read, my research, that the state of Florida, anyone who updated their ID between 2010 and now, it was a real ID with the little star on it. So I don't know, a person who said they're in Florida and it doesn't have the star on it, I don't know why, because I think it's every 8 years you got to renew your license. So it's been 15 years. So I don't know what happened there. But anyway, whenever I would book flights, they would always say, hey, May 2025. I remember them saying it. May 2025, you have to have the real ID. You got it. They would keep telling me that every time I booked the flight, every time I would check in for a flight, they would say, no, you got to have this real ID. And again, I've been hearing about this since 2022. And that was during the Biden administration. So again, this is not a Trump policy. So the real ID thing, what it does is simplifies access, extensively eliminating the need for additional documentation, such as a passport. So if you're traveling within the United States, of course, you don't need a passport. You can just bring your regular ID. And if you have a real ID now, you don't need a passport. But if you don't have a real ID, what I believe the protocol is, you would have to bring your passport. So any of you who doesn't have a real ID, and somebody fact check me on that, I think that's what it is. Please confirm or tell me what's different if I got that wrong. I believe now, starting May 7th, if you don't have the real ID, you can still fly, but you got to have an additional form of identification. So it just mucks up the whole situation. I would suggest you not have to do all that and just get the damn real ID. Okay, so everybody's confirming that? Yeah, that's what I thought it was. You don't want to have to carry around your passport, because it's one thing to lose your driver's license. You can pretty much, in most states, I think if you lose your driver's license, you can get another one on the internet. You might have to wait 10 days. You got to pay for it, but you can get another one in the mail 10 days later. But if you lose your passport, that's a trickier one. I don't think you want to lose your passport, especially those of you who travel internationally. Getting a new passport is a bitch, and it's not really anywhere you can physically go to get it. So the whole concept of this real ID is because it is standardized across states, it reduces, according to, this is the government's way of selling this, is that it reduces discrepancies. It minimizes possibilities for identity fraud, and it enhances trust in state-issued IDs. Because there are some things that you do that if you only have a state-issued ID, it's like you need more. You got to have something at a higher level. So allegedly, again, according to the way this is being packaged to all of us as citizens, is that this new real ID thing will reduce the need for you bringing additional forms of identification when you need to do certain things, according to what they're saying. Now, if that happens, we can put that in the plus category of the real ID. Now, again, a lot of people are still pushing back on this because of what I'm going to get to in a second. But if it does that, that's a good thing. I don't see how that could possibly be a bad thing. But there are some things that you do in life where you got to have additional forms of ID. There was something that I was doing not too long ago. I can't remember what it was. I got to try to remember. I can't remember what it was. Something I was doing a few months ago where I had to bring additional forms of ID. Where the hell was I at? Because I remember I had to grab my passport. What was it? I cannot remember what it was. I'll think of it in a second. It'll come to me in a moment. But I had to have my passport. I had to have my ID. And, you know what it was? I was opening a P.O. box. Yeah, I was opening a post office box at the USPS. This is like 2 months ago. And to open a P.O. box, you got to print out this form. You got to fill out the documentation. You got to bring, of course, you got to pay for it. You got to bring your ID, and you got to have multiple forms of ID. So you got to have your driver's license. You got to have a passport. And then you got to have something that proves that you live where you say that you live. So you got to bring like the lease from where you live, or the electric bill, or some type of utility bill. You got to do all that just to open a damn P.O. box. Why does that matter? It doesn't. But the reason you got to do that because it's run by the United States government. Now, if it was run by, let's say, some private company, then like Elon Musk or something, or Amazon, then I wouldn't have to do that. But when you get anything through the government, they get all in your business. They want to know everything about you, and you got to show them all this ID in order to get anything. So that's what I was doing. So those are kind of the positives, let's just say, of the Real ID situation. Now let's get to the challenges, because there are some challenges to the Real ID situation. One is a pretty clear one. A lot of critics don't like that there's going to be a centralized database connected between the states, which could lead to possibly what some are saying, increased surveillance and misuse of personal information by the United States government. Son, did you come in here to join me? You coming here to join me? You going to join my live stream with me? Come up here and so everybody can see you and hear you if you want to come up here. Okay. See the truck there. Okay. So, can you say hi to the audience?
Hi, audience.
Can you say hi to TikTok?
Hi.
Hi, Instagram.
Hi.
Hi, Facebook.
Hi, Facebook.
Hi, X.
Hi.
Hi, Rumble.
Hi.
Hi, YouTube.
Hi, YouTube.
And hi to LinkedIn. Hi to LinkedIn. LinkedIn's over here.
Hi, LinkedIn.
Okay, so one of the challenges that people say, oh, you just came to say hi and leave? Okay. One of the challenges that people say this is going to create a centralized database that the son, close this door, please. Son, close the door. It's going to create a centralized database that the government basically has tabs and access to all of our stuff, and they know your name, they know where you're at, they know where you're going. Here's my response to that. This ain't new. They already know where you're at. The government already knows everything about you. They already know where you're going. They can tell you what you ate for lunch yesterday. They already know where you live. They already know if what you says on your ID is not where you live. You actually live somewhere else. They know about it. They got all the information they need about you already. So any of you who thinks that Real ID is all of a sudden impinging on your privacy with regards to the United States government, I got news for you. They have already impinged on your privacy. Okay, starting with 9/11. Okay. After 9/11, PBS Frontline has a bunch of documentaries where they talked about this, how the United States government started spying on pretty much everything and everyone after 9/11 in the name of increased security, because we don't want this to happen again. All right. Many of you can, even if you never heard of any of these documentaries or read any of the books or heard anybody talking about this, the Alex Joneses of the world. Hopefully I can say his name on TikTok. You got to be careful saying his name. People like that, InfoWars guy, that they've been talking about this stuff for years. They've been talking about this stuff for decades. The United States government is spying on you. They know what you're doing. They know where you're at. They know where you're going. They know who you're hanging with. They know what you're thinking about doing. They know what you thought about doing and didn't do. They know what you did without thinking about it. They know everything about you. You've already given up all your privacy just by virtue of living in the United States of America. If you go outside the United States of America, you are being watched. You are being surveilled. You are being filmed. You are being documented. If you own a car and it's in your name, all right, they know where you're going. If it's not in your name, they know you're the one who's driving it. They know everything about you. You got one of these. Okay, everybody listens to this. You got one of these. You have no privacy. All right, so every one of you listening to this, you got a smartphone. Every one of you listening to this, you have an account on a social media platform. They know about you. And yes, even if your account is not your real name and you don't have your real face on there and you put a fake pseudonym information on there, well, guess what? They know your IP address. They know what building you were in. They can tell you what exact unit in your apartment building you were in when you signed up for that account. So they know exactly where you're at. They know if you drive in your car and you log into Facebook, they connect that to the home that you came from in that same phone, and they see where you're going. They know everything about you, folks. If you have a smartphone and or you use social media, usually a combination of both, you have no privacy. Real ID did not change anything. All it did was maybe make you a little bit more aware of it, but you don't have any privacy. Okay? None of you can say you're concerned for your privacy if you're using social media. That doesn't make any sense. Okay? As soon as you sign up, you check a little box that says, I agree to the terms and conditions. All right, you signed away your privacy as soon as you check that box. As soon as you check that box and said, okay, I agree, confirm. All right, let me go validate my phone number. Don't you got to validate your phone number when you get on all these apps? Validate your phone number. You validated your email address. If you have your real name on your profile, you had to validate that you're a real person. Everything about you is public information. And if there's ever a data leak, everything about you, there's somebody in some country somewhere that you can't pronounce, they got all your information. Right? They already got it. So any of you who was worried about this, they already got it. All right, they already got everything. And the government, they got all this stuff because they can easily make a phone call. You saw during Trump's inauguration. Who was at that inauguration? Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos. What do they run? The two biggest companies in their spaces. Jeff Bezos runs Amazon, or he created Amazon, let's say. And Amazon is where all of you spend your money. All right, we want to buy something on the internet. Usually we're buying it off Amazon. And Mark Zuckerberg runs Meta, formerly known as Facebook, and they have all the Facebook apps, which everybody has an account on, and Instagram, and many people use that. And I believe WhatsApp, they own WhatsApp, right? Doesn't Meta own WhatsApp now? So WhatsApp, Instagram, and Facebook, and Mark Zuckerberg has Amazon. Understand something. Why were they at his inauguration? They were at Trump's inauguration because Trump won. Now, had Kamala won, they would have been at Kamala's inauguration. Now, why would they be at either one of the inaugurations? They'd be at either one of the inaugurations because the United States government understands the reach that these companies have. And if the United States government does not like the way that either of these companies is operating, actually, let me say it differently. When the United States government notices the reach that companies like Amazon and Meta have, they reach out to them and they say, hey, Mr. Bezos, hey, Mr. Zuckerberg, we are calling from the government and we need some information that you have access to. And if Mr. Bezos or Mr. Zuckerberg says, oh, fuck you, government, I'm not giving it to you, what the government then does is says, okay. And what they do is start launching investigations into the way those guys do business. And if you think I'm just making this up, Mark Zuckerberg said this out of his own mouth. Listen to him when he was on the Rogan podcast a little bit. I think, when was he on that? Was that right after Trump's inauguration or right before? Do y'all hear that? Did y'all listen to that interview? Zuckerberg on Rogan? I think it was in January. It was either right before or right after Trump's inauguration. And what Zuckerberg was saying, and what he claims one of the reasons why he got behind the Trump campaign and donated money, because a lot of people got mad at him for that who are otherwise fans of his, because he was supporting, remember, Mark Zuckerberg was shutting down, quote unquote, misinformation during the virus in 2020. Y'all remember all that? And a lot of people who were providing the quote unquote misinformation were people who generally lean politically to the right. So it seemed as if Mark Zuckerberg, again, running a company in Silicon Valley, which is very much politically to the left, it seemed like he was aligned with the political left. But now here he is aligning with the political right. Why is he doing this? I just told you. All right, they are with the government. They do whatever the government says, because the government reached out to him back then and said, hey, here's what you need to do. Here's what you need to shut down. Here's what you need to label and you need to suppress so it doesn't get out. And listen to him on the Rogan podcast. He talked about all this. All right, he talked about all this on the Rogan podcast. Cyber said, I think it was before. Maybe it was before. But he was talking about all this and how he was getting heat from the Biden administration. Well, first of all, he got heat from them during the virus. And they said, do this, shut this down, suppress this. And they did it. During the virus, Facebook did everything the government told them to do. In other words, shut down anything that is not the right information, quote unquote, the right information or accurate information, or is not properly fact checked and all that stuff. Y'all remember they did that. If y'all don't remember the government putting out this document called the Disinformation Dozen, please go look it up. It's a PDF. You can find it online for free. One of the names on that Disinformation Dozen, RFK Jr. Different conversation for a different day. But anyway, the government was basically attacking anyone who's putting out any information that they didn't like during the virus. And Facebook went along with this, Mark Zuckerberg. So many people saw him as, okay, he's over there with the left. Fine. He's a Silicon Valley guy. What do you expect? Now, based on what he said on the Rogan show, is that the Biden administration was coming after him and they were starting to look into his companies for bringing him to suing him or something like that. Let me let you all know something. You don't want to get sued by the United States government. You don't want to get sued by the government for several reasons. Number one, they have unlimited resources, and none of us has unlimited resources. Even Mark Zuckerberg, with all of his noted finances, he does not have unlimited resources. The government has unlimited resources, and they will go after you until they get you. All right, that's why somebody like Mr. Puff Daddy, Sean Combs, P. Diddy, he's on trial against the federal government. That's an uphill climb, really, really uphill. And y'all can look up the stats on how often the federal government wins their cases. There's a reason why they win most of their cases. Next thing is, you don't want the federal government going after you because, well, who's the judge? He works for the federal government. Who's the jury? Well, hopefully they're They're a impartial jury. But again, everything is run by them. They run everything. They got access to all the information. They have access to all the data. They got access to all the lawyers. They can pay people as much as they want. The federal government starts investigating you. The best thing you can do is call the federal government and say, hey, federal government, this is Mark Zuckerberg here. What do we have to do to resolve this? What do we got to do to make sure that what do we got to do to solve this whole problem? What do we got to do to solve this issue and make this go away so that you all stop breathing down our necks. All right, that's what Mark Zuckerberg understood. And he said when the Biden administration started looking into him, he had a choice: either capitulate to what they were telling him, and he basically had said on Rogan, and y'all should listen to the episode on Rogan because he explains this, was that they bullied him a lot. He didn't use the word bullied, but they basically pushed him around during the virus, and he capitulated to a lot of it. But he didn't want to keep getting pushed around, so he said, okay, here's what I can do. I can either capitulate to them again, or I can get on Trump's side and hope Trump wins. Same thing he did is the same thing that Jeff Bezos did. He did this through his company, Washington Post, that he owns, the newspaper, and said, we're not going to endorse the candidate. And his editorial team was about to endorse Kamala. They were really mad at him. Why didn't he let them endorse Kamala? Because he was betting on Trump winning. So he's another one who jumped in. And same thing Elon Musk did. Elon Musk, same thing he said, is that they were the Biden administration was starting to investigate his companies. And Elon Musk gets a lot of subsidies from the government. He has a lot of contracts with the government. And if he loses those contracts, on top of the fact of getting sued, that could ruin him and ruin his entire company, or ruin all his businesses. And he said, okay, again, he had two choices: either capitulate to what the government said, or let me bet on Trump winning and hope like hell he actually wins. So you want to know why Elon was so on board with the Trump campaign? It wasn't just because he decided, oh, I like Trump, he sounds good, let me go give him a whole bunch of money and be on the stage with him. That's not why he jumped in bed with Trump. He jumped in bed with Trump because his business, the main thing he's known for, which is not Doge or the government or any of that nonsense, main thing he's known for is his Tesla companies and all the stuff around it. He was having that threatened by the government. And had Kamala won, we might see the end of Elon Musk sometime between now and 2028 if Kamala had won. But since Kamala didn't win, and Elon was part of the reason why she didn't win, he was basically betting on how do I make sure I keep my company in place. So that 130 million, whatever they claim, Elon donated to the Trump campaign, and him showing up at those rallies and all that stuff that he did, and working for Doge and all that stuff, all of that was to save the ass of his businesses. That was not a governmental move. It wasn't a political move for Elon. It looks political, but it wasn't political. It was protecting his own personal interests. It was politics with a lowercase p, which means things that human beings do to protect or advance their own personal interests involving other people. The lowercase politics. Uppercase politics is the government. He got involved in uppercase politics because he was trying to protect his lowercase politics. That's what Elon was actually doing. And the whole point of all this, folks, is that the government, if they want to get you, they'll get you. That's what it is. If they want to get you, they'll get you. And Mark Zuckerberg understood this. So he said, okay, I need the government, quote unquote, to be Donald Trump. Jeff Bezos, I need the government to be Donald Trump. And who's the other guy? Elon. I need the government to be Trump. Well, Elon did it up front. Mark Zuckerberg did it on a little bit quieter level. He got overshadowed by Elon. Had there been no Elon in this last cycle, Mark Zuckerberg would have been getting a lot of the heat that Elon got. But Elon took all the heat. And then Jeff Bezos, he quietly did it because I think he stepped down from being an active CEO of Amazon. Of course, he's still connected to Amazon. But the reason he was at that inauguration with his soon, I think his wife or his fiance, whatever that chick is, the chick with the breast out. And the reason he was there with his chick with the breast out was because he needs the government to stay off his ass. All right, that's the reason why he was there. I don't want the government on my ass. That's why I got to be here, and I got to, as they say every time Trump's been president, I got to go kiss the ring to make sure this guy does not have his organizations that he has access to breathing down my neck. And it was exactly what the Biden administration was doing to a lot of people. So the increased surveillance, possible, misuse of personal information. The government's already doing this. Your information is already out there. There's somebody in some country that you cannot pronounce and that you could not point out on a map if it didn't have the names on it. They already got all your information. They already know who you are. They already know where you live. They know how many kids you got. They know their names. They know what schools they go to. They know exactly where you're going. If you go to the grocery store today, they know that you went. And if you pay with Apple Pay, they know what you bought. All right. They know everything about you already. Okay. So any of you who thought this was a concern now and any concern now, you should have been concerned 20 years ago. Actually, you should have been concerned before you bought your first iPhone. All right. That ship has left the dock. All right. Everybody got it? Now, again, social media is over. Is over when it comes to your privacy. None of us have privacy. And within the next 25 years, I'll be doing a live stream explaining how all of us were complicit in giving up all of our privacy. And now there is no privacy in America. It's going to be more obvious. It's already obvious, but many people haven't quite woken up to it yet. And within the next 25 years, all these social companies, the Mark Zuckerbergs, the whoever owns TikTok, what up? LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook. I already said Facebook. Rumble. What's the other one I'm on? All these companies, they're all going to get dragged down to Capitol Hill, and they're going to have to explain themselves. They've already been dragged down. They're going to get dragged down again, and it's going to get more of the average person's attention than it has the previous times when everyone finally realizes, like, damn, we gave up all of our privacy. They know everything about us. What are we going to do about this? And the answer is, once the cat's out of the bag, you ain't putting it back in. That's what it is. All right. So when it comes to this Real ID and your personal privacy and security, you don't have any. You don't have any privacy. You gave up that privacy for this ostensibly to get security. So obtaining the Real ID requirements requires documentation, proof of identity, social security, residency, which if you're an American citizen, you already have these things. So one of the things the reason Kristi Noem is talking about this, and the reason the government is saying it, again, ostensibly, is we want our country to be more safe. We want to make it stricter laws around voting, voter ID. You got to have an ID and show an identification to vote. I don't see how anybody can have a problem with that. No one is unable to get access to an identification card. If you're an actual citizen, you have a social security number, you live somewhere, hopefully, and you can prove your identity in some way, shape, or form, then I don't see who doesn't have that. Any of us, if we lose our identification, that's like an emergency. I got to go get some ID. You lose your driver's license, you got to go get another one, because if you get pulled over and you don't have a driver's license, you can get arrested. You can get your car impounded. At worst case, you get a ticket unless you can talk your way out of it. So any of us lose an ID, we immediately go and replace it. So how people talking about people are disenfranchised, they don't have ID, it's hard to get ID, it's nonsense. If you're an American citizen, you need to have ID. You want to do most things, you must show some form of ID to do a lot of things that are on the, let's just say, the official level. So all that said, let's open the floor up for some discussion. I think I can hold off on the potty break that I normally take when I'm doing these live. So let's get into the conversation. Let's see what we got. Abdullah over there on YouTube. Good morning to you. Massey is a Republican. Okay, so a bunch of people confirmed that. Okay, and Instagram, I don't think I saw any comments on Instagram. No, I did not. Let's see what we got going on TikTok. Let me scroll up to the top here. By the way, if you're watching me on TikTok, my YouTube link and my Instagram link are both in my profile here. So you can follow me in both of those places, just in case I get banned off of TikTok, which I have been warned by TikTok that I'm one strike away from having happen to me. Willie Woodard, good morning. Nikki, good morning. Courtney said they extended it again. They extended the TikTok sale. What did they extend it to? What's the holdup? True Self said, do I got mine? Yes, I got mine when I renewed my license in 2023. It was already the Real ID, but I didn't do it because of that. I did it just because my license was expired and I had to do it. Carla, Indiana, good morning to you. Yes, everybody said that. Sonia said, I didn't even know it was a thing till my daughter asked me about it. Yeah, so if you don't travel, you might not have heard about it. But I travel, so I heard about it through the airlines would say it, and the Clear representatives kept telling me, hey, that Real ID thing is going in. I remember that date. They kept saying that date too. Erica Farrow, good morning. Boogie said digital currency coming next. What you mean, like dollars? Well, we already got it. What kind of digital currency are you talking about? True Self. I read the comments after I get done going through the material, and I start at the top. So you were posting that a bunch of times, but I'm not actively replying to comments while I'm doing my, I guess you'll call it a monologue. Sweet Potato, good morning to you. Thank you for the share. Courtney, #1 gifter badge. Congrats. Marky Man, good morning. Kyle said, is this man's name Thomas? Me? No. Mark Briere said, can't afford Clear upfront cost. Well, take the next time you're about to fly, here's what you do. Go to Clear's website, and if it's your first time ever signing up, it's like a 30-day free trial. So take the 30-day free trial and then get your flight. As long as your flight is within 30 days, get your flight, take your flight, and go through Clear on the way out and on the way back. Make sure you're flying somewhere and from somewhere and to somewhere that actually has Clear at the airport. So go on their website, and they'll tell you where Clear actually exists. Let me see if I can pull it up. Because Clear has apps, but you don't actually need the app. The app is useless in terms of when you get to the airport, you don't actually need to use Clear's app. What you do is, what is they saying? So meet us at the airport. We'll take care of the rest. So they got this other thing called Clear Concierge. They're trying to sell this to me right now. As soon as I logged in, they're trying to sell me Clear Concierge. It says our new service exclusive to Clear Plus members, which I guess that's what I am. Your bags are covered. Directions are covered. Stress none. Curb to gate is $149. I think this is each flight. So let's see what it says on Clear's website. They say, this is Clear Concierge. Meet us at the airport. We take care of everything else. Your shortcut through the airport every time you travel. A dedicated ambassador will meet you when you arrive, help you with your luggage, and bring you through the airport. You can choose between two services, Curb to Clear or Curb to Gate. So they can take you either from your car up to the Clear gate or from the curb. So Curb to Clear or Curb to Gate or all the way to the gate. So I guess it's extra. They take you all the way through security and everything, all the way to the gate. So I can see you doing this like if your grandma's on a plane and you don't want her trying to figure out the airport by herself, or she's got a flight. You can book Clear, what do they call this? Clear Concierge. You can book your service at least 10 hours in advance, and it's exclusive to Clear Plus members. So you got to have a Clear membership to even sign up for this. And let's see what it says here. I actually like the idea of this. So the airports they have, here's the airports they have. There's not that many of them. Let me read these out so all of you know which airports. If you're not flying out one of these airports, Clear might not be worth the investment. So Austin, Texas, Cleveland, Ohio, Dallas, Texas, Denver, Washington, Dulles, Orlando, Milwaukee, Minneapolis, San Juan, okay, and Salt Lake City. No, these are the only airports with the concierge. There's more airports than this because they don't even list Miami, Fort Lauderdale. They have it, but I guess you can't get Clear Concierge at those other airports. Then airline, it does depend on the airline too, because certain what do they call them in the airport? The terminals. Some terminals have Clear, some of them don't. So, for example, flying out of Miami, I will often fly American, and when you fly American, that terminal does not have Clear. But if you fly Delta, that terminal does have Clear, and I tend to fly Delta more often than American. American kind of lost my business. I like Delta's staff, and I like the Delta experience a little bit better than American. But I might give American a try. If I'm going up and down the East Coast, American is better. But if you're going anywhere other than the East Coast, Delta beats American, in my experience. Coming from the East Coast, by the way. I fly out of South Florida. So let's see. I'm just looking for what airports have Clear, because there is a list. I'm just trying to find them. So you can renew TSA. So TSA pre-check is only $68. Okay, that's not bad. I thought they would raise the price. They didn't raise the price. All of y'all got TSA pre-check, right? If you fly at all, you better have TSA pre-check. If you don't have TSA pre-check, what are you doing? Please get TSA pre-check for your own personal well-being. It's not worth it to not have TSA pre-check. So I'm trying to sign into the Clear website, and it keeps giving me errors. Let's see. Go. All right, it's telling me I must have the wrong password. Let's see one more time. All right, let's try that one. It's still giving me an error. All right, let me find it. Let me ask ChatGPT. By the way, this past weekend, I'll always use ChatGPT, but I didn't have the paid version. I signed up for the paid version of ChatGPT, $20 a month, and this thing can do a lot more than I thought it could. So I'm glad I finally got around to getting it. What airports in the United States have the Clear service available? And Clear is always trying to get more airports. So Clear Plus is available in 59 airports. Okay, so I'm not reading out these 59 airports. Y'all are going to have to go look that up on your own time. But, and it is also in locations. Like you can use Clear at the Kaseya Center, used to be called American Airlines Arena, also the FTX Arena in Miami. You can use that to check in. I don't know how or what it does, but you can use it there. Allegiant Stadium in Vegas is another one. So I already told you Austin. BMO Stadium. What the hell is BMO Stadium? It's in Los Angeles. I didn't know there was a stadium called BMO. I don't know what that is. So a bunch of arenas. Barclays Center in Brooklyn. Boise Airport has it. So a lot of places have it. I'm not going to read all these out. But anyway, let's get back to where I was. How do I get Clear? Candace asked. Just go to their website. Their website, I believe, is clear.me. I believe is the name of their website. I think it's clear.me. Let me check. And I just created my first chat bot too over on ChatGPT, a custom chat bot. And I'm about to create a bunch more. They told me I could create 5 of them. So I'm about to make a bunch of them. So Mark Briere, I was supposed to be answering your question here or your comment that you can't afford Clear. I would say get the 30-day free trial. Next time you're about to fly somewhere that has Clear at both ends of your travel, And then after you experience it one time, you're going to realize that you can afford it because you can't not afford it. That's the best way to get somebody to buy something that they think they can't afford, is let them experience it so that they realize, oh, okay, this is more than I want to spend, but because it's such a good experience, I got to buy it anyway. I remember my dad, he had never flown first class, and he and my mom had flown from Philly to South Florida, and they flew first class. And my dad was asking me after they did it, he was like, do you ever fly first class? And I was like, yeah, I fly first class all the time. He was like, that was my first time flying first class. And it was so good, I got to do it all the time. I can't not fly first class now. That's how you sell people on something, is let them get the experience of seeing it. And then once they see it, then they're like, damn, I got to do this all the time, even if they had to pay the first time. So in the sales world, this is a form of what they call a puppy dog close. It's like someone comes to the pet store to buy a dog, and you probably shouldn't buy a dog from a pet store, by the way, but someone goes to the pet store to buy a dog and they're not sure. You tell them, well, take the dog home tonight. And if you don't want the dog, bring it back tomorrow. And nobody brings the dog back because once you have it there, you fall in love with the dog overnight, and now you want to keep it. So any of you who has something that you can sell that way, I suggest you do it. MM True said inverse correlation. What are you referring to? Live Free said all that ish is a money grab, not a safety thing. Well, again, I understand. That's what I said. Well, this is what the government does. They want to do it. What's going to stop them from doing it? Especially when they do it under the guise of everybody's afraid, and they got away with it because we okayed this. Here's the thing, Live Free, we okayed this. After 9/11, everyone was okay with the government doing whatever it needed to do to keep us safe, quote unquote safe. We okayed this, so we can't be mad at it now. To Amber and Beyond, good morning to you. King Moss said, miss those days you grew up in the airport. Yes, those were the days you could just walk straight up to the gate. No security, no nothing. TSA created a bunch of jobs, if you want to look on the bright side. And it made the government a bunch of money because you got to pay for TSA pre-check. James said, I feel old when people talk about 9/11. It was a long time ago now, but it doesn't feel like it was that long ago. Nikki, number 2 badge. Congrats. Jean Paul, thank you for the heart. Live Free said, if you have a police badge, you straight to the front. I didn't know that. I'm not a cop, so I wouldn't know that. Marcus said, it was nice to be able to say goodbye at the gate. Yeah, exactly. That was the whole thing. That was what they made romance movies was about. You could say goodbye to somebody at the gate and watch them get on the plane and watch the plane fly off while you stand there in sadness. Now you got to watch them walk through TSA. Not as fun. It's a different situation. They took the romance out of it. All right, so all of you got the states with the real ID. Shout out to everybody with the real ID already. Let's see. Melissa said, oh, yes, Michigan. Ingrid said, New York. Yes. You have enhanced in New York. New York's got a lot of extra rules and laws. I'm not a big fan of New York as far as residency. I love New York, the city, but I wouldn't want to live in New York. King Moss said, we have a launch for Broward Republicans tonight. What does that mean? What are you talking about? Tara said, oh, I have it. LOL. All right. Aviance said, I'm in Georgia. I have a star on mine. Does that mean I have a real ID? Yes, that's what it means. If you have a star on yours, that means you have the real ID. So if you can just look up in your state, when did they start implementing it? And then look up when's the last time you got a new version of your ID. And then you'll know that you probably got it already. Ingrid said you had to bring more info on renewal for a real ID. Oh, so you got to bring your passport, I'm guessing? Yeah, that sucks. But I mean, what are you supposed to do? What can you do? Live Free said everything can be duplicated. What are you referring to? Everything like what? Courtney, thank you for the bracelet. Traditional all day. Thank you for the gifted badge. Good to see you here. Uncle Richard said one photo is to show who you are. One form proves your physical address. Yeah, exactly. So depending on what you're doing, you got to bring extra form. I don't like anything where I got to bring extra forms of ID. I understand it, but I don't enjoy it. BDU said, I only had to have my driver's license, birth certificate, MC, I don't know what MC is, and 2 bills on my address. Too easy. I think you're being sarcastic. Yeah, I'm not a fan of all the paperwork they ask for. And why they're trying to stop you. I feel like whenever I do something that is like government workers, it seems to me, y'all tell me if y'all have this experience, it seems to me they're trying as hard as they can to not help you. And that's why I don't like doing anything that involves a government system. I like having a P.O. box, but I might decide in the future I might get me like the UPS or does Amazon have P.O. boxes like the UPS ones or something like that? Because I don't like going through the government stuff because the workers are like It's almost like they don't want to help you. But I'll give you all a tip, simple tip. Some of you might know about this, is that if you're going to any place where people tend to get rude, when you go there, go first thing in the morning. If you're like the first customer, then they're nice because they haven't gotten aggravated enough yet because the day just started. So if you got to go to the post office and you got to go up to the counter and get some help, get there when it opens. Be like the first customer of the day. That person who's usually a jerk will be nice at 8 o'clock in the morning. Now you go there 3 in the afternoon, you're on your own. But 8 o'clock in the morning are usually pretty nice. So that's my hack for dealing with government employees is I go first thing in the morning. Even when I went to the DMV and I had to go to renew my license, you got to schedule an appointment. So I scheduled my appointment for first thing in the morning, 8 o'clock. It was still a bunch of people there, and they were still like borderline, but I got it done. And also, by the way, another thing I tell you is go to like a suburb. Any of you who's a city person, if you live in a city, if you got to do some government stuff, if you can, do it somewhere in the suburbs. So in the suburban places, they tend to be less aggravated as a general rule, and the workers tend to be a lot nicer. Now, if you go in the city, like if you live in New York and you go to the DMV in fucking Bronx, all right, don't do that. All right, go to the DMV outside the city if you can. If you go into DMV, I'm assuming you got a car. All right, go outside the city, go to some suburb that you know is a nice neighborhood. Schedule your appointment out there. All right, make a day of it. Go to lunch, do something. Go see friends out there. Do something like that. So next time I got to renew my license, I'm gonna renew my license somewhere like West Palm Beach or Boca Raton or something like that, so that I can get some nice workers. They're gonna be nicer than people in Miami or right outside the city. Everybody said my son is so cute. Thank you. I took my son to a festival this weekend, and every single worker, because he had his hair in a bun. So my wife sometimes puts his hair in a bun. So it was in a bun and is all slicked back. But every single person who saw him, from the security to the workers who were running the rides and all that, every single person referred to him as a girl. They kept saying she, or her. I'm like, how does this kid look like a girl? Now, not with his hair, how y'all saw it today, but when it's slicked back in a bun, people are looking at him and referring to him as a girl. I'm like, how are y'all seeing a girl looking at this kid? I don't understand it, but that happens a lot. Anyway. The original Roe said, that's terrible. Frontline was late. Aren't we supposed to fight that? Fight it how? How are you going to fight it? It got signed into law. Congress passed this. So the original Roe, we accepted it because we voted for these people in the Congress. They crafted the bill. The bill got signed into law by the government, and now here we are. James said the NSA is a good example. Yeah, the NSA is a great example. Riri said people trade privacy for thinking they are safe. Very much true. The original Rose says that a good example of the T people winning? Maybe. Some people would say that, depending on how you want to look at it. Slay House. So TikTok is supposed to be giving me this captcha here because I've been live for an hour, but it's not showing up. This thing happened to me last time too. I think when I scroll over so I can see more of the comments, it does this, and then it kind of hiccups the system. So I'm waiting for TikTok to give me the captcha. There it is. All right, so TikTok has a little bit of a hiccup here. Someone needs to fix the coding on the back end of their site because then I can't scroll while I'm waiting for that thing to show up. Slay House said, I checked driver's license. It doesn't have a star, so what's the procedure of obtaining another? What state do you live in? All you had to do is go and look up the rules in your state because every state is different. This is the whole purpose of Real ID, is that they want to try to start normalizing the ID situation across all 50 states so that federally they can know that there's some uniformity. But right now, every state has their own situation. Personally, I prefer that every state have their own situation. But, I mean, what the hell are we going to do about it? We okayed this. We voted for whoever ended up in Congress. Congress passed the bill. The bill became a law when the president who we voted for signed it. So that's pretty much what it is. So that's what you do, Slay House. Carla said it started way before then. Research into the Hudson Plan. Surveillance started a long time ago. Oh, yeah. I mean, the surveillance, yes, is a long time. Again, Mr. Jones has been talking about that for he's been talking about it since before 9/11. And you see what they did to him. So Forever Evolving Faith said, Tether want you to be so worried that the C country has your information. What exactly do you mean by that? Riri said they know more about you than you know because you've forgotten. The internet never forgets. Yes, exactly. Carla said January 6th, they used phones to track who was there. Yeah, they did. They knew where everybody was at. Carla said the government paid them to shut down information. Nah, I would agree with that. Latrice, good morning. Thank you for the follow. Liv said freedom ain't free. Exactly. Where was I? Let me get back to where I was. Carlos said, what makes you wonder if the government controls everything? How is the dark web still up? Well, they control a lot of things. And anything they don't control, if they want to control it, they will. That's just how it goes. Judged by one, good morning. Carlos said, your AI self will be giving an update to personal information. Oh, that's a fact. Carlos said, so many illegals were given SSN in housing so they can still obtain an ID. Well, that's one of the pushbacks against it. That if people came in here and they didn't go through the proper channels, but then they can still get the real ID, what's the point of the real ID? But we also got to remember that the real ID thing is from 2005. It's not like this is a brand new idea. So it's an old idea finally getting implemented. Again, this is the way the government works. James said, if you can't figure out how to get an ID, should you even vote? In my opinion, no. I agree. Everyone should have to show an ID to vote. I do agree with that. Patriot said, Google has had our info for years. Also true. Yes, all of you understand this. This is Dimitri. Thank you for the follow. Renata Haley, good morning. Said, do you already discuss the buy now tweet? I did not discuss that. I talked about the whole tariff thing last week. But as far as Trump saying now is a good time to buy, I mean, I don't think it's like anything illegal. I think he can say it, and it depends on how he's saying it. It's hard to kind of read context into a tweet like that. Now, he could very easily give himself plausible deniability as opposed to someone calling it, hey, he's kind of insider trading and helping his friends out because he said it to everybody. Everybody could have followed it and said, okay, Trump said buy now, let me go buy something. So, I mean, what are you going to do with that? None of your business says, no, a 70-year-old who suffers from lawless changes, he can't connect identity at 70 to that of when at 30. What do you mean by that? I don't understand what you mean. Mahoney's World said, I think they mean it will only be digital currency. Oh, right. There won't be any paper dollars. Well, that's why many people hold on to paper. That's why many people invest in things like gold, like actual physical gold. Cheryl said, we have always had to show ID in Michigan, and we had to get real ID 2 years ago. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Every state has their own process. None of yours says, I read that one already. 4,000 elect said, get an ISO protocol blockchains when we go to bear market. Are you speaking over my head with that comment? I need you to dumb that down and say it in plain fifth grader language. The Sir Mike show said, real ID has been talked about for a good 4 years now. My mom died in 2021. She was talking about it. Yeah, they've been talking about this for a while. I remember going back at least 3 years. Every time I got on a flight, I would get that notification about the real ID. Mahoney said, I like the idea of that for my mom. Yes. Yeah. They talking about that clear concierge thing. Yes, it is a good idea. I'm surprised they don't have it in Florida. There's a lot of older people in Florida, retirees and stuff, and they would gladly pay extra for a premium service. I might pay for it just to see what it's like. Carlos said, in my opinion, they did it out for 20 years so people who weren't born will not know how it was before 9/11. Okay, well, why would that matter then, Carla? I'm interested in the thread of your thought there. Why would it matter? Mahoney said, American Airlines stinks. Well, that's what some say. It depends on what type of staff you get and the planes. I like the planes where, well, this is in the first class section. I like the big planes where the seats are like these bubbles, like a little bubble. I don't know what you call those. What do they call those seats? You know what I'm talking about? The seats where it's kind of like a bubble and you and another person are next to each other, but it's like you are a little bit angled away from each other. And you can put your feet up and it's like a little, I don't know what you call those things. Whatever that thing is called. I like those kind of seats. Carlos said easier to get people to give up their privacy. Yeah, fair enough. But they could have got away with it in 2005. I mean, why wait? They could have got away with it then. They're not really getting away with it now because it became a law a long time ago. We just took long to implement it. Mahoney said, I wish I was at a Delta hub. I have a United hub. What town you in? Chicago? Delta hubs, well, one of Delta's biggest hubs is Atlanta. So they're pretty solid down here in South Florida, but Atlanta is a Delta town. Miami is really an American Airlines town. But I also will fly out of Fort Lauderdale or Palm Beach, depending on where I'm going. Carlos said, I like Delta for long flights, but domestically Southwest, just saying. Now, Southwest hardly flies at all in South Florida because they're Southwest, so we're in the Southeast. But I know friends who like flying Southwest. I'm not a fan of Southwest because Southwest is about being on time and being generally cheap flights. I don't like airlines that advertise themselves as saving you money because I tend to not like the service. I guess I'm a snob in that way. I like flying first class and I will pay for first class, and I like first class service. What airline was I on? I flew United because I couldn't get a flight on Delta or American. Where was I at? Was I in Vegas? I think I was in Vegas a couple months ago, and I flew United coming back. I book my flights. I don't book round trip flights ever. I book one flight going out and one flight coming in. So I book them separately. So I think I flew Delta to get to Vegas, and I flew United to come home. And on the United flight, they had like an upgraded plane. This new type of plane it was United. I remember this. I think I told you all this story. I flew United, and the plane was very nice. They had upgraded the first class section. The seats and all that was much upgraded. They had their little power thing was, instead of in front of you, like near your feet, they had it like next to you on the side, like next to your elbow. The only thing they didn't have was Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi sucked. And the Wi-Fi, you had to pay for the Wi-Fi, first of all. Delta gives you Wi-Fi for free. If you have just a membership, you get it free. American charges for it. American needs to stop charging for Wi-Fi. That's one of the reasons I stopped flying them. Delta gives you Wi-Fi free, as long as you have like a Delta membership, whatever they call that thing. United charged you. It was like $15 for the Wi-Fi. And then you can only use one device for the Wi-Fi. I'm like, how the hell y'all limiting my devices and you're already charging me? And this Wi-Fi ain't that good. So I complained to United. I bitched to them about the fact that they charged me for the Wi-Fi and they only gave me one device and the Wi-Fi wasn't that good, and they refunded me my money. But they said, I think the flight attendant said this, or it might have been the person who, when I emailed and complained, they said it, that they're doing a deal with Starlink, Elon Musk. United's doing a deal with Starlink, and they're going to have Starlink Wi-Fi, and it's going to be free. But it didn't happen yet. They said it's going to be like late 2025 or something like that. It takes a whole years for them to put this stuff in place. So United they got my attention. The problem is, in South Florida, United doesn't do much. If you're flying out of South Florida, you're pretty much looking at American or Delta. You have a choice. They both do a good amount. If you're going up the East Coast, like South Florida to Philly, DC, New York, Boston, you pretty much American's going to give you the best deal. And if you're going back and forth, East Coast, American's the best deal. But anywhere outside of the East Coast, I'm a fan of Delta. American's been sending me emails for like a year and a half trying to get me to book a flight again. I think my miles expired. Tara said I'm in South Florida too. Yeah, so, well, I just told you. Carla said, I like Delta for long flights. Oh, I just read that. Yeah, one of my friends, he would always fly Southwest. And didn't Southwest say they're going to change how does Southwest do their seating? Is like whoever gets in line first is just like first come, first serve. And I'm not a fan. I'm not a fan of that. Right? First come, first serve to get on seats, and then people just running through the plane trying to grab a seat. No, thank you. No, I'm not trying. I ain't trying to do that. I like having my seat assigned. I can be the last one on the plane, and my seat is still available because it's my seat. That's what I like, and I'll pay for that. I'm willing to pay for it. Not everybody is, but I'm willing to pay for it. Carter, thanks for telling people to keep tapping. Sugar, good morning to you. Michelle Henry, good morning. Cyberfit, thank you for sharing the stream with more than 5 friends. Davis Lawson, good morning. Code Red, good morning to you. Elijah said, I work at the post office. You're right. Oh, yeah, I know. I've been shipping books out of the post office for a long time. So I know when to go to the post office and when not to go to the post office, especially in the city. You go to a post office in the city, those people get extremely rude, especially in the middle of the afternoon. So I learned my lesson. Do not go to the post office after 12 o'clock. Don't do it. If you're going to go to the post office, go there first thing in the morning. So if it opens at 8, be sitting in your car at 7:59. And when they open the door, you be one of the first few customers of the day. They're very nice at the beginning of the day. By the end of the day, they've been getting aggravated by customers all day. And even if you're nice, they might be out of patience. So y'all take that with you. Everybody who's listening. Post office in the afternoon, bad idea, especially in the city. Now, if you go to a post office like in the suburbs or a small, quiet town, those people might be nice all day because they don't get aggravated by the customers. But in the city, don't do it. All right, take my word. You grow girl, thank you for the follow. Jazz said, that's so true. I live in NYC, but Yonkers DMV is a lot faster and more pleasant. Yes, exactly. I told you, I know my stuff. I've been around. All right. If y'all going to do anything government related, go outside of the city. Do not go to the DMV in fucking Manhattan. All right? Bad idea. All right, not in Miami. Don't do it. Philadelphia, any big city. Don't go to the DMV there. Go out wherever you can get outside the town. They usually give you a list of all the locations and they tell you how far it is. Go to one that's in the burbs. There's nice people in the suburbs. Sean said they've been talking about real ID. Yeah, exactly. I said that at the beginning. Carla said, yeah, I said that. Eminem said United is the worst. Well, I think everybody's had bad experiences on airlines, depending on who else is on the plane, number one, and who the crew is on that plane, and what level of flying are you doing? Are you flying coach? Did you do like upgraded experience? Delta has Delta Plus, so Delta has like that in between. So most airlines just have coach and they got first class, and some airlines like Spirit and not JetBlue, but does JetBlue have a first class? I don't fly JetBlue. Does JetBlue have first class? Anybody know? What's the other one I was thinking about? Spirit, Frontier, and I think Southwest doesn't have first class, or do they? I don't fly Southwest, but anybody fill me in. What are the airlines that don't have a first class? I know Spirit doesn't. I would never fly Spirit. So any of you, I don't care how cheap the ticket is, do not fly Spirit. And I'm going to tell you more of why in a moment. Frontier, I know doesn't have first class. I flew that before, and I said I'm never flying this again. I'm too tall to sit in the seats in Frontier. Spirit, same thing. I don't know if Southwest has it. And JetBlue, I don't know. Avalo, I never heard of them. Who are they? I never heard of that airline, Nikki. Where do they fly out of? I don't like airlines that don't offer a first class. Even if I didn't sit in first class, I still want an airline that has a first class. Connecticut, okay. Yeah, that's the upper part of the country. Northeast, I don't know about them. I never heard of Avalo. They don't offer first class? Okay, good to know. I will never live in that part of the country, but you don't think Southwest has first class? Yeah, I'm not a fan of any airline that doesn't have first class. And the reason why you don't fly Spirit. All right, any of you ever seen one of those videos that go viral on social media, people fighting on an airplane? Notice that's never, first of all, notice the fight is never happening in the first class section. It's never happening in the upgraded section. So Delta has a middle section. They got coach, they have first class, and they have, I think it's called Delta Plus. So it doesn't cost as much as first class, but it's like 25 seats where you could pay a little bit extra. The seats are a little bit bigger, and you get a little bit of perks. So Delta has 3 sections. So even if you're not ready to invest in first class, you can invest in Delta Plus and pay $80 more for your flight, something like that. But I personally don't like budget airlines because they nickel and dime you for everything. The staff tends to be fucking jerks. I don't like staff anywhere that's budget. The staff tends to suck. That's the reason why I don't like doing business with the government, because the government tends to not overcharge you for things. They do, but they don't. And the staff tends to be not too nice. That's why I don't like DMVs or post offices. And what's the other thing? When it comes to the airlines, also the baggage fees is another thing. And then who else is on the plane? That's the other thing I'm thinking about. When I see those videos of people fighting on the plane, I'm like, okay, I don't want to be on a plane with anybody who would even think about fighting on the plane. And secondly, even if I'm not fighting nobody on the plane, what the person next to me wants to fight on the plane, and they start fighting with the person in front of me, and now they're fighting it, and I'm sitting there, and the fight is spilling on to me, and I got my laptop out, and I'm trying to drink some water, and I got a suit on, and now they're fighting on the plane. I'm like, no, this can't happen. So I don't want to be anywhere where any of that inward behavior can happen. And I know it ain't just black people. White people fight on planes too. But y'all know what I mean. All right, I don't want to be involved. I don't want to be in that type of environment where that thing could even possibly happen. So I try to inoculate myself. You never seen a fight in a plane on first class. You don't see that. And if you did, it would be an anomaly. So that's my point. So I try to remove myself from the possibility of shenanigans. That's what I call it. I don't want to be around any shenanigans. Alaska Turbo Prop, no first class. I've never heard of them. I heard of Alaska Airlines. Is that the same thing? Is that somebody else? Marky Man. James says Spirit Airlines is the Waffle House of the sky. Yes, they've been to Waffle House. All right, Spirit Airlines been to Waffle House of the sky. None of you should ever fly Spirit Airlines. I don't care how cheap the flight is. And anyway, Spirit Airlines used to nickel and dime people. I don't know if they still do it because I used to get emails from them because I would fly Spirit a couple times because they fly a lot out of South Florida, like Fort Lauderdale. They fly out of Fort Lauderdale a lot, and I would fly Spirit. I did it a few times, and the last time I did it, I said I'm never flying on this airline again because several things I hated about Spirit Airlines. Number one, they would send you an email and say something like, you could fly to New York for $9 out of Fort Lauderdale. It'd be something like $9 or $19, something real cheap. And then you go get the flight. Like, all right, I'll go to New York. And your $9 flight ends up being like $147 because they charge you for the airline fee, then they charge you for the bags, then they charge you for a seat, then they charge you like the fee, then they charge you the oxygen fee, then they charge you the discount fee. And after they charge you all the fees, you end up paying like $150 for the flight, even though they enticed you with a $9 ticket. So it's really a bait and switch. I don't know if they're allowed to do that anymore because that should be illegal. They shouldn't be allowed to do that. I don't know if Spirit still does that, but I'm not a fan of Spirit Airlines at all. That's not one reason. Number two, their staff sucks because when you're a budget airline, that means you're not making that much money, which means you can't pay your staff very well, which means you're going to get a bunch of trashy staff. So they suck because they got attitudes because who are they dealing with all day? And again, this is another thing. For those of you looking for a job, don't go work in a place that sells cheap shit because you're going to deal with a whole bunch of cheap customers and they tend to be jerks. And then you're going to be a jerk because you got to deal with jerks all day. So that's another reason why I don't like Spirit. Third reason is when you are flying on an airline that is offering cheap shit, guess who all the other customers are? They're all people who are looking to buy cheap shit. And they tend to be low-class individuals or people who don't know how to conduct themselves. It doesn't mean you can't have a nice person who just wants to buy a cheap airline ticket. There are plenty of people who buy cheap shit who are nice people. But if there are any jerks, they're usually going to be the people buying cheap shit. Like I said, you've never seen people fighting on a plane in first class because it costs more to be in first class. And people spend that kind of money, they act like they got some fucking sense. When people buy cheap shit, they act like they don't have sense, and sometimes they don't have sense. And you combine all this, then Spirit, the seats are small as hell. The reason why Spirit can offer such cheap flights is because the space in between seats is so small that they can fit more seats onto the plane. Therefore, they can charge more people. And the more people you put into a space, the more chances of shenanigans. And again, if they're this type of person and you got more and more of them, you got a better chance of some nonsense happening. So again, you just combine all these things. Then Spirit doesn't give you shit on the plane. They don't care if the Spirit airplane is like a slave ship. All right. They don't give you food. They don't give you water. You'll get nothing. All right. Just hope you survive between the time the plane takes off and the time the plane lands. I'm not a fan of Spirit Airlines. None of you should fly Spirit. I don't care if you got to spend an extra $50 or $100 for your ticket, multiplied by the number of kids you got going with you. Do not fly on Spirit Airlines. All right, Spirit can take me to court for trashing them on my live stream, but do not fly Spirit Airlines. I'm absolutely not a fan. Tamika says Spirit is soul plane. Now, it ain't even that. It's no soul plane. Soulless plane is what Spirit Airlines is. I do not like Spirit at all in any way. And even then, when you complain to Spirit about something, they take a long time to even help you out. They don't even want to help you when you got a complaint. So no Spirit Airlines. DR said American is always delayed, especially if your connection is DFW. Well, DFW is American's hub. Their hub is they got several. They have one in Dallas for sure. They got one in Miami. That's why the arena down here used to be called American Airlines Arena. So they got another hub in Miami. So a lot of flights, American flights, are out of Miami. Dallas is another one, and they tend to do a lot of connections through Dallas. So if you fly American, like from here to Vegas, the plane will often stop in Dallas or anywhere to the West Coast. You fly to LA, it'll stop in Dallas. Of course, you can get a nonstop flight, costs more. I mean, I remember I flew to Oregon. You fly to Seattle, they often stop in Dallas because they have hubs there. But I generally like American. I just think Delta is better. I don't have a problem with American. I just think Delta is better. I remember I was on an American flight. This was before my son was born. This was like around this time, actually, about 2022. My son's going to be 3 years old this year. Mike said, fly Spirit, New York to Miami. Nah, Mike, I would suggest you don't. I trash Spirit, and somebody said something similar. Like, yeah, I always fly Spirit to South Florida because I think they have a hub in Florida. I think they have a hub in Fort Lauderdale or Miami. Spirit does. I think they do. And anyway, somebody else said the same thing you said, is that they fly Spirit all the time and they have no problems. I'm not saying you're going to have a problem just because you got on the plane. I'm saying if there is a problem, it's probably going to happen on Spirit more than it happens on other airlines because of everything that I just told you. But anyway, I was on an American flight 3 years ago. This is before I was wearing suits. So I started wearing suits about this time 3 years ago. Before this, I was not wearing suits every day. I would wear what most of you would think somebody with my background wears. So white T-shirt, basketball shorts, Jordan sneakers, hat. If you see me on the weekends, that's how I'm dressed. So I'm on the flight and I had on a hat that said work. You see that hat right there up there that says work on your game? I got other hats that say, let me see if I can show you one of my other hats. So I had on one of these hats. See, this hat says work on your fucking game. So I had this hat on the plane. So, and I'm sitting in first class. So I paid extra for the ticket. You think the people would be nice to me, right? So this is from Miami to Philadelphia. I'm flying to Philadelphia. I had this hat on, not this one, but a hat like this. And the flight attendant was an older white woman. And she said hello to me when I got on the plane. She didn't say nothing. And she's getting stuff ready, asked me, do I want to drink, et cetera, et cetera. All normal, right? So the flight didn't take off yet. Some black dude gets on the plane. I could tell he was a worker, like he worked for the company or something like that, but he wasn't a flight attendant. He had on like a regular suit. He didn't have on a uniform. He had on a suit. And he comes up to me and he says, hey, sir, how you doing? And I'm like, yo, what's up? And he says, hey, is it possible that hat that you're wearing, you can turn it around while we're on the plane? And again, this guy's not a flight attendant. He's some black dude with a suit on. But I could tell he's working because he got on like the badge and stuff. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And he's like, well, the flight attendants notified us that you have some offensive language on your hat. Again, this is the hat that I'm wearing, not this exact hat, but it said just this. It's a different color. He said they noted that you have some offensive language on your hat. And the first thing I asked him, I was like, well, the white woman who was the flight attendant, I'm like, she saw me. Why she didn't say nothing? Why didn't she say something? So I guess she figured I'm this young-ish black guy and she's this old white lady. I guess she was concerned about saying something to me that I might get hostile with her. I would not have. I would have responded to her the same way I responded to the black dude. So they sent the black guy to come tell me to turn the hat around. Or not tell me. He asked me. And he made it very clear he was asking me. He was very nice. He said, we're just asking you to turn the hat around. And he said, I just want to see if you be willing to turn the hat around. That's literally what he said. I want to see if you'd be willing to turn the hat around. So if somebody asks you a question, that means they're giving you an option, right? He was giving, and he wasn't like, sometimes a cop says something like, hey, you want to turn the hat around, and say it in a way that they're not really asking, they're kind of telling you, but they're trying to be polite. That's not the way he asked. The way he said it was like he was telling me either you can do it or you can not do it. I said, no, I'm not going to turn the hat around. And I wasn't even trying to be a jerk. But here's the thing. When you wear a hat like this, mind you, I'm sitting on an airplane. So if you put on a hat like this, and I had the hat on like this, right? This looks funny with a suit on, right? So when you're sitting on the plane, you got the headrest behind you. So if I turn the hat around, the brim of the hat is hitting the fucking headrest. You can't sit on the plane with the brim of the hat hitting the headrest. So it logistically doesn't make any sense to have your hat on backwards while you're sitting on a plane, because you can't even put your hat back because you can't put your head back because the brim is going to hit the headrest. That's why I said no, not because I was offended that she was offended by what it said on my hat. He said, all right, cool. He walked away. He comes back like 3 minutes later and he says, sir, we're going to have to remove you from the plane. This is what he tells me. They're about to kick me off the plane. And I'm like, what? And he said, well, we asked you if you would turn your hat around and you didn't want to do it. So we got to remove you from the plane. And I said to him, the same thing that some of you may be thinking. I'm like, mofo. I didn't cuss at him, but I'm like, dude, why don't you just tell me, hey, we want you to turn your hat around, but if you don't want to, they're going to ask you to get off the plane. If he would have said that, I would have said, all right, I'll just turn the hat around or I'll take the hat off. What I ended up doing was just taking the hat off during the duration of the flight because, again, I couldn't turn around backwards. But I asked him, I said to him, dude, why you ain't just tell me, why you just keep it real from the beginning? Just say, yo, if you don't turn the hat around, they're going to ask you to be removed from the plane. Why didn't you just say that from the beginning? And we had a little back and forth, but whatever. He was nice about it. Again, I took the hat off to get off the plane. So then at the end of the flight, this is what happened. At the end of the flight, I went and approached the white lady, the flight attendant, after the flight. I didn't say nothing to her during the flight. During the flight, she brought me food, bought me drinks. I didn't say anything about it. I knew she was the one who instituted this, and she knew that I knew she had done it because the black dude told me, but I didn't say anything because we're on the plane. What I'm going to do on the plane. So I wait till the flight ends, and as we're getting off, I approach her and say, yo, like, what was that about? And she said, well, the language on your hat was kind of offensive to me. So that's why I asked. I said, well, why didn't you say something? And she didn't really have anything else to say about it. We had a short little exchange after that, but she wasn't as polite as the black dude. And that kind of annoyed me. And I let American Airlines know about it. They didn't really do anything to rectify the situation. They might have given me something. I don't remember what they did. They might have given me a little voucher or something like that. They didn't really do anything. And that kind of soured me on American Airlines. But at the same time, after that, I started wearing suits all the time. So I don't wear hats like that out always anyway. But also these days with a child, sometimes I'm cognizant of when I wear this hat because like I have hoodies that even got this on it. And I'm like, I can't, if I'm going to go somewhere with my kid and there's going to be other kids around, I wouldn't wear this. But I'm saying all that to say, even on American Airlines, sometimes you get some snobby folks. I never had anybody on Delta talk to me like that. So that's why it just all things being equal, I'll still take Delta over American after that. But that was one of the American flights that had like the bubble seats. Then y'all know what those seats are called, where it's kind of like you're sitting in this little, it's not a tube, but it's kind of like there's a little bubble above you and the seat is kind of angled and you can put your feet up. I like those seats. Usually see those planes when you're going overseas, but this was in the United States. This was a domestic flight. So the question is, this is Dimitri, why don't you buy round trip flights? Good question. Well, two reasons. One is that if you buy a round trip ticket and for whatever reason you miss your outbound flight, they cancel the whole thing. For those of y'all who don't know that. So if you're flying from New York to Miami and you buy a round trip back from Miami to New York and you miss your outbound flight, and let's say you get a different plane, you get a flight on Delta instead of American, and then you're just going to take your American flight back home from your original round trip ticket. They cancel the whole thing if you miss one leg. If you miss the first leg, they cancel your whole ticket. That's one. So it kind of just gives you an out clause, for lack of a better term, if you happen to miss one leg of your flight or for whatever reason you missed that one. That's one. And two, it gives you more flexibility and options. I just like having options. So if I'm flying from Miami to Vegas, for example, I'll buy the outbound flight to Vegas. I might buy the outbound flight to Vegas today because it's a good price. But then the inbound flight coming back from Vegas to here, I might not get the price that I want until like 3 weeks from now. So I'll wait and I'll look on this website called Kayak, Kayak. That's what I use to find my flights, but then I book them directly. And there's another thing. I'll give y'all some other game when it comes to traveling. Don't book your flights through aggregators. And I'll tell you why in a second. So I'll use this website Kayak and they'll say, hey, Dre, here's a good price for the flight from Miami to Vegas. I'll go book the outbound flight. So now I got a flight to Vegas, but I have no way to get home. So 3 weeks later, I find a good price for the flight from Vegas to Miami and I'll book that one, but it's not even American. It might be Delta. So I might fly American to get there and Delta to fly home. I do that every time that I fly. And the reason why you don't book through the aggregator, so let's say Kayak says, hey, here's a good American flight, and you can book it right on their website. Don't do that. Because if anything goes wrong with your flight and you call American, they're going to look at your flight and they're going to say, well, I'm sorry, sir, but you booked your flight through Kayak, so you have to call them to fix the problem. Don't do that. So book your flight direct. So use the site to give you the information, and then you book the flight directly. So I will look on Kayak and I'll see a good price for Delta. Then I'll go to the Delta website, log in with my Delta account, and buy the flight on Delta's website because it's the same price. It's just Kayak gives you all the airlines info, whereas Delta only gives you Delta info. So you basically use them to get the right information, then you go directly and buy your flight. Because if anything goes wrong on that flight, they're going to pass the buck and say, well, we can't fix it because you bought it over there. So any of you ever had that problem, you know. International flight, any kind of flight, this always applies. Always book your flights directly through the company that is actually running the flight, not these aggregator sites, because they will screw you over. And then when you try to reach the aggregator site, everybody's passing the buck. So they're like, well, yeah, you booked the flight with us, but it's an American flight and we don't control this. And then it's all this nonsense. So you just got to use them. So that's why I don't buy round trip flights. This is Dimitri. And also I just like having the flexibility. Because if American offers me a good flight one way, but they don't offer me a good price the other way, then I use somebody else. And it's also a good way to get a feel for different airlines and see what you like. Mike says, I do all the time. Great service. Okay. I'm not saying that you're lying, Mike, but I'm saying if some nonsense happens, it'll probably happen on a Spirit flight. Carla said, that's the ticket for me. I don't like connections. I prefer direct flights. Yeah, me too. I tried to be cheap. A couple of years ago, I was flying from Vegas back to Miami again. And the difference between the direct flight and there was a connecting flight that went through Minneapolis. And there was a direct flight, but the direct flight was like $300 more. And I said, let me just save the $300 and take the connecting flight. And of course, what happens? The flight gets delayed and I missed my connection back to Miami. So I had to stay in Minneapolis overnight. And it cost me like 12 hours. And it cost me money, but it cost me 12 hours of time, which is worth more than the money that I saved. And I said, okay, let me not do that again. Let me just pay extra and get the direct flight. Connecting flights, you always introduce a possible failure point of a delayed flight. Now your whole trip is delayed. Courtney, thank you. You like this hat? Tara said, people are too sensitive nowadays. I think she was just kind of just flexing her muscle because she didn't say nothing. She never said anything to me. She could have just said to me, sir, hey, that language is kind of offensive. Do you mind turning your hat around during the flight? And again, what the hell does she care? She's walking around the plane fucking serving drinks. Why do you care what it says on my hat? It didn't make any sense on many different levels, but I didn't make a big deal out of it. Live Free said the airlines used to have a dress code. Yeah, I know. Back in the days, if you look at pictures back in the day of people on a plane, especially in the first class section, if you didn't have on a suit, you weren't sitting in first class. I've heard about that. Was before I was actively flying. Phantom said, do you utilize credit card points for your flights? I try to save points. I try to not use the points at all. If I absolutely needed to use them, I would use them. But I try to not use credit card points. I just try to accumulate them and then not use them, and then only use them if I absolutely need to, like say some type of emergency. But I will accumulate credit card points for my flights. So if there's a chance to accumulate points, then I will accumulate them. But I want to just have a whole bunch of points to where you can basically, because you need a lot of points to have $1. Like I think I was looking at American Express, how many points it took to equal $1. It was a lot. I can't even remember what the number was. It was a lot. You need a lot of points to equal $1. So to buy a flight, you need I can't even remember the number, but it's a lot. So anyway, all that said, everybody, I do these live streams Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. Eastern. So if you like this one, come back tomorrow. I think we're going to talk about the career politician scam, the scam of someone being a politician their entire career. I've touched on this in different presentations in the past, but I think I'm going to jump all the way in on it tomorrow, possibly, pending any other news items bumping us off the list. The nonsense that society has accepted, how our standards have dropped. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how do we fight misinformation, quote unquote. And those are all the planned topics for this week. But we'll see. I got other topics that I may touch on. So some of them are just sitting in the parking lot, just waiting for the signal to go. So we will see what I end up talking about in other days this week. All that said, folks, I do have a show that comes out every single day. This show every day, but I have a podcast. I call it a masterclass. You can find it on Apple or Spotify. It is called Work on Your Game. Comes out every single day. It is completely free. My show has been coming out since 2016. We have over 3,257 episodes, as you can see. Episode number 3257. Today's topic is feelings don't care about your facts. So all you heard the saying, facts don't care about your feelings. I did that episode in the past. This episode is feelings don't care about your facts, because that's true as well. That episode came out today. That's episode number 3,257. This one is 27 minutes in length. So my show is anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes every day. It's just me talking. It's structured where I give you point number 1, number 2, number 3, usually 3 points every episode, about 20, 30 minutes per episode. And that's me raw every single day. So if you want to know the official record of how I feel about anything, you want to find it on my show. Again, it's called Work on Your Game. You can find it on any of your favorite podcasting apps. Here I am again. This is on Apple. It's called Work on Your Game. Comes out every single day, completely for free, audio version. And again, we have over 3,000 episodes of this show. I'm about to record a bunch of episodes today, as a matter of fact. What else I need to tell you all? You want to learn more about me, what I do business-wise, as far as the transactional exchanges? That's Work on Your Game University. That's where we do our consulting, our coaching, our speaking, all the events, all the things that I do other than these things is all at workonyourgameuniversity.com. You want to get a copy of my latest book called The Sales Discipline System. That's this book right here. You can see above me. That link is in my TikTok, but I'm about to change the link in my TikTok, as a matter of fact. I'm about to change it right now. The link in my TikTok profile, I'm about to change it to the link to my, I just created my first bot, my first chat bot. So any of you want to get on my chat bot and actually talk to a digitized chatbot version of me that's going to answer questions based on my knowledge and the things that I know. I'm changing my link right now. We called it Dre GPT. So Dre GPT, the first version. This is Dre GPT 1.0, the AI version of me. Y'all want to get that? Just go to the link that I think I just changed in my TikTok bio. Did I change it? Yes, I did. So get the link in my TikTok bio, which is right here, dreallday.com/AI. Get that link. Go and talk to my chatbot. So that's that, folks. I held off on going to the bathroom, but I do still need to go. Everybody have a great Monday. I will see you all tomorrow. Thank you to all my moderators who are in here, making sure that we get the likes. We got 57,000 here today. Thank you to all of you. I think most of you are ladies. So thank you to all the ladies who are moderating here on my TikTok and everybody on all the other platforms who are watching me right now. I'll see you all tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. Eastern. Have a great day. Work on your game. We out of here.